Hi everyone, this is Selvi. Today's interview question is: what are the challenges faced by a team if we are not giving sufficient time between the backlog refinement event and the sprint planning event? So let's try to understand what exactly happens during the sprint planning event. As a team, we identify the sprint goal with product owner, and to achieve the sprint goal, we pick up the work items and prepare a backlog for the sprint, which is called as the sprint backlog, which is also the subset of the product backlog. What will happen if we don't have right things in the product backlog? We may not create the sprint backlog in an effective way. So what are the things that will add as a challenge or that will bring challenge if we are not giving sufficient time between the backlog refinement and sprint planning events? Let's try to understand each and every challenge. What happens in the backlog refinement session? Backlog refinement session is all about clarifying the questions, elaborating the requirement, understand the requirement, remove the uncertainties, ask questions, clarify them, identify risk and dependencies. Finally, with all the information that we are available with, estimate that particular item. Now, if we are able to refine in this pattern, it is really well and good. But to achieve to this point of estimation, we should clarify the questions, we should get the complete clarity, we should resolve the dependencies, we should come up with an action plan or mitigation plan for risk. Finally, we should be able to achieve definition of ready for that work item. So when I say this needs time, right? When you are planning a backlog refinement event, that event is going to give all these outcome. You are going to get the list of dependencies, you are going to get the list of risk, you are going to get the list of actions for your product owner or maybe for your technical team to clarify all the questions that what team has brought. What if I'm not giving time? Dependencies are not going to be resolved. Risk may not get the mitigation plan or any action plan. We may not able to reach the definition of ready. And product owner may not get time to clarify all the questions with business or product management team. So with all these things happening, will we be able to plan our sprint backlog in a better way with these work items which are actually not refined completely? We may not be. So that's the reason we are calling all these things as challenges. So the first challenge is, during the backlog refinement session, team brought different set of questions and product owner was unable to clarify everything because there was no sufficient time. So we were unable to complete the refinement for that particular work item. Team added lot of dependencies. They identified lot of dependencies and risk for certain work items. Unfortunately, we had no time from the backlog refinement to sprint planning event. So we were unable to complete or resolve the dependency. For example, there was a dependency with design team. Unfortunately, I had no time as a Scrum Master to follow up because my backlog refinement session and sprint planning event are very close. I don't have time to resolve them. Same with risk as well. We have identified risk, but really we are unable to identify the owners. We are unable to identify the action plan or the mitigation plan because we had no time. Now, with all these things open, my definition of ready is also not met. Still it is open. Still some of the checklist items are open and the work items are not meeting the criteria of definition of ready. With this condition, I am unable to plan the work for the sprint according to the capacity available. I have capacity in my team, but I don't have really refined work items in the product backlog because most of the items are having open dependencies, most of the items are having risk, most of the items are not estimated because they have certain questions. We are not in a position to pick anything from there. But I have capacity. What can I do now? Let me add some technical spikes, enabler stories, which are available in the product backlog. They may not need a specific backlog refinement session because they are some technical stories which are known to the team. They may not add any business value at this point of time. They are not even in the priority list, but I have capacity, but I don't have really the stories to pick it up from my product backlog. So I'm going to use these technical spikes or the enabler stories. Is that the set of challenges? We have one more also. What will happen if I have something ready during the half of the sprint? And as it is also priority, initially I was not ready, now I'm ready. I'm going to add them as a scope change. So we are inviting scope change because of this as well. All these are happening just because we have not given sufficient time between these events of backlog refinement and sprint planning. Just to summarize, your product owner may not get sufficient time to clarify the questions with business or product management team. You may not have time to resolve all the dependencies. You may not have time to plan the mitigation activities for your risk. Your work items may not reach definition of ready so that you cannot pick them up as part of the sprint backlog. You have capacity, but you don't have set of things to do. So you are going to just use some technical spikes or enablers which are of not priority and no business value. And finally, you are going to invite scope change because of all these irrelevant things in the sprint backlog, and also you don't have complete information that is required for the sprint backlog. So definitely during the sprint execution, there are high chances you may add something which are going to be ready as part of scope change. So to avoid all these challenges, it is very, very important as a Scrum Master when you are planning this backlog refinement session. Please do not entertain to club these events like backlog refinement and sprint planning. Please make these two events as separate events and also ensure that you are giving sufficient time between these events. If you are not giving time between these events, it is not going to be really fruitful because all the actions that you have derived from the backlog refinement session are not going to be fulfilled, or those actions are not going to be completed before the sprint planning, because of which you may not have sufficient details for your sprint planning. So it is very, very important how well we can plan backlog refinement session so that we will get sufficient time to manage all these activities and be really ready according to the definition of ready to pick up those work items as part of your sprint planning and align with the sprint goal that as a team that you created and prepare your sprint backlog for the sprint execution. I think this episode would have really helped each and every one of you to understand the importance of scheduling the backlog refinement session. Thanks everyone for listening. Happy learning and stay tuned.